Hi my dear students and my dear colleagues. In today's video, I am going to talk about Act 1, Scene 2 of Julius Caesar. Before I take you into the Scene 2, let me talk about two important words, and they are superstitions and supernatural elements. I am going to talk on what these superstitious beliefs are and what these supernatural elements are. Because Shakespeare introduces these superstitious beliefs and supernatural occurrences or supernatural elements in some of his plays, like the one I talked about in my previous video about the three witches in Macbeth. The three witches are called the three weird sisters, and they are supernatural creatures. What is supernatural? That which is not natural. And these three witches, Shakespeare very clearly explains that they appear like old women with broken skin and broken lips and hanging cheeks. They look like women, but they have beards. Hence, these three witches are supernatural elements which stand for the three elements of fate, or let me say fate. Fate comes in the form of these three witches, and fate tempts Macbeth to his doom, to his tragedy. So I talked about these things in my previous video, but I forgot to tell you that these three witches are supernatural creatures. And in today's video, let me also talk about certain superstitious occurrences and supernatural elements. And the question is, why does Shakespeare introduce these superstitious happenings and beliefs and supernatural sights in some of his plays? Is that Romans were highly superstitious. Ancient Romans were highly superstitious, and even the Elizabethans, the age in which Shakespeare lived, is called the Elizabethan age, and even the Elizabethan audiences believed in these superstitious beliefs and supernatural occurrences. The Elizabethan audiences believed that the soul of the dead would come down to earth and speak to the living. That is why we have a ghost in Hamlet. We have the ghost of Elder Hamlet in Hamlet. We have the ghost of Banquo in Macbeth. And even in Julius Caesar, we have the ghost of Julius Caesar troubling Brutus, troubling Cassius, and taking them to their tragic ends. When the second scene begins, you have superstitious beliefs and supernatural occurrences happening in Scene 2 and Scene 3 of first act in Julius Caesar. And let me tell you one thing, my dear friends. The entire play Julius Caesar is also dominated by the workings of fate, F-A-T-E. Shakespeare read Sophocles' Oedipus Rex, way back in perhaps 420 BC. And in that play, fate plays an important role in classical Greece, Oedipus Rex is an ancient play written by Sophocles. And there, Sophocles says that Oedipus is fated, as it were. Oedipus is fated to kill his father unknowingly and marry his mother. This is a terrible tragedy of Oedipus. Fate makes Oedipus kill his own father unwittingly, unknowingly, and marry his mother. And the same fate is brought about in the play Julius Caesar by Shakespeare. And here, even fate plays a very important role in bringing about the tragic death of Julius Caesar and also of Brutus, Cassius, and the rest. So fate. One who believes in fate is called a fatalist. Fatalist. In Kannada we call it Hane Baraha. Understood? And when the play opens, you find Julius Caesar being very superstitious. Because Cassius and the other conspirators want some reason to assassinate Julius Caesar, to slay Julius Caesar, to kill Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar has many weaknesses in this play. And these weaknesses are very important for Cassius to play upon and poison the mind of Brutus against Julius Caesar. Because, mind you, Brutus is Julius Caesar's angel. A-N-G-E-L. He is Julius Caesar's best friend. And such a best friend's mind is poisoned by Cassius by talking about Julius Caesar's weaknesses. Let me tell you one thing. Julius Caesar is an old man in this play. He is highly superstitious. And he is deaf by 1 ear. He is deaf by 1 ear, E-A-R. And he has falling sickness, epilepsy. He has this falling sickness. And he cannot swim properly. He is physically weak. He cannot swim. And all these weaknesses of Julius Caesar are magnified by Cassius, and Cassius thus poisons the mind of Brutus against Julius Caesar. Look at the play. The play is called after Julius Caesar because Julius Caesar is our tragic hero in the play, along with Brutus. When the scene opens, when scene 2, the second scene opens, we already know that it is the festival of Lupercal or the festival of Lupercalia. And you find Caesar being followed by people, Caesar being followed by his wife Calpurnia, his bodyguard, let me call him Marcus Antonius or Mark Antony. Casca is following them. Cicero, a senator, is following them. And all the citizens of Rome are following him. And suddenly, Caesar stops and here he tells the audiences that he is highly superstitious. Very innocently, Caesar calls Calpurnia, his wife, and asks her to stand in the way of Antonius or Antony when Antony runs this holy chase. In the festival of Lupercal, Antony is made to run with a leather belt on, and he has to run naked, completely naked. And if he, while running this holy run or holy chase, if he touches, if his naked body or even if the leather belt touches any barren woman, any childless woman, it is believed that, or it was believed that that childless woman would be blessed with a child. Her infertility, the curse of her infertility would be shaken off and she would be blessed with children. She would become fertile. This is a superstitious belief of the Romans as well as the Elizabethans. Because Elizabethans were also superstitious. If at all they did not believe in the festival of Lupercal, they believed in other superstitious beliefs. And here, when the play opens, I'll just read out the lines. You students, you just take out here, open your books and follow my lines. Caesar says, Calpurnia. And look at Casca. As soon as Caesar takes out the name of his wife Calpurnia, Casca, who is following Caesar, immediately says, peace ho, Caesar speaks. When Caesar speaks, all the music should come to an end. All the music should come to stand still, okay? Peace ho, Caesar speaks, he says. And Caesar once again calls out his wife's name, Calpurnia. Then Calpurnia says, hear me, Lord. Then Caesar says, stand you directly in Antonius' way when he doth run his course. Antonius. Antony says, Caesar, my Lord. Then Caesar says, forget not in your spear, Antonius, to touch Calpurnia. For our elders say, the barren touched in this holy chase shake off their sterile curse. Look at the lines spoken by Caesar. Very innocently, very unknowingly, he talks about these superstitious beliefs. He says that he strongly believes in these superstitions. He says, for our elders say, look at this, even their ancestors used to follow. Our elders say the barren touched in this holy chase shake off. They are saved from this curse called sterility, barrenness, the curse of being a childless woman. Then look at Antony. Antony says, I shall remember. When Caesar says, do this, it is performed. Look at this. Antony follows whatever Caesar asks him to do. Whatever Caesar says, Antony follows. Then Caesar says, Antony touches Calpurnia and continues his holy chase. Then Caesar says, set on and leave no ceremony out. And when they're about to move, suddenly someone from the crowd cries louder than all the music. Somebody says, Caesar! Somebody shouts. And then Caesar stops. Who calls? Then Casca says, bid every noise be still, please yet again. Once again, all music stops. And Caesar turns around, he says something here. Who is it in the press that calls on me? I hear tongue shriller than all the music cries, Caesar. Speak. Caesar is turned to hear. Look at this. He says, who is it? Somebody from the press. Press means the crowd. Somebody in the press that calls on. Who is it that calls on me? I hear a tongue. I hear a voice. Shriller than all music. Louder than all the music cries, Caesar. Come on, speak. Who is he? Caesar is turned to hear. Caesar is ready to hear. Then soothsayer, from being among the crowd, in the midst of the crowd, he cries once again. He says, beware the Ides of March. Look at this. I have to shout. Somebody shouts, beware the Ides of March. Be careful about the 15th of March. There is something going to happen, some danger going to happen to you, Caesar. Somebody shouts, and this could even be a supernatural, scream. Fate is crying out loudly and asking Julius Caesar loudly to take care. Fate decides. Nobody can control one's fate. Fate, in the form of the soothsayer, gives him a warning to be careful on the 15th of March. Caesar tries his best, but Caesar is not able to control what he is fated against. Julius Caesar is clearly marked out by fate, as it were, as a victim, and he succumbs, he falls a prey to fate. He dies according to whatever the soothsayer has said. He dies on the 15th of March. So none can escape fate. Soothsayer wants Caesar to beware of the Ides of March. Ides means the 15th day of March. And Caesar doesn't understand because he hasn't seen his face. He has only heard a voice. And then Caesar asks a question. What man is that? And Brutus comes forward and says, a soothsayer bids you beware the Ides of March. A soothsayer is warning you to beware of the Ides of March. And Caesar is in a way shocked, but he cannot express that fear in public. That is his weakness. Because Caesar's arrogance is also one of his weaknesses. Caesar sometimes behaves in a very arrogant way, in a very stubborn way, So when Brutus says, a soothsayer bewares you, beware the Ides of March. Then Caesar asked him to set him before him. Set him before me. Let me see his face. Then Cassius comes forward. He says, fellow, come from the throng. Throng means crowd. Come from the throng. He comes. Look upon Caesar. Then the soothsayer looks at Caesar. Then Caesar asks him, what sayest thou now to me? What sayest to me now? Speak once again. Then soothsayer says, beware the Ides of March. Once again he warns him for the second time. Beware the Ides of March. And look at Caesar. Caesar is scared. Caesar is afraid, but still he cannot show that fear in public, in the open. And that arrogance of Caesar comes out and takes hold of him. And then Caesar says, he pretends as if he doesn't believe him. He says, he is a dreamer. Let's leave him pass, he says. He is a dreamer. He is a fool. Dreamer means here, fool. He is an idiot. He is a fool. Let's leave him. Let's ignore him. And then he moves forward. That arrogance of Caesar is one of Caesar's greatest weaknesses, my dear friends. And all of them go away, and the procession continues, and the running race is being conducted there as a part of the festival of Lupercal, and Brutus doesn't join them. Brutus doesn't join Caesar and the rest in that holy chase to notice what is happening there. Brutus is not interested. So Brutus stays back, and Cassius observes this, and he comes to Brutus, and Cassius speaks to Brutus. And here, Cassius, place upon Brutus's what shall I say, Brutus's impractical idealism. Brutus is a theorist, Brutus always lives in his dreams. Brutus is never practical. Brutus is an idealist. He always lives in an ideal world, a perfect world, which Rome is not. Rome is not an ideal world. Understood? Rome is full of politics. Romans are full of politics. There is power politics being played in Rome, but still Brutus lives in his own imaginary world of idealism. Hence, Cassius very cunningly poisons this idealistic mind of Brutus against Caesar. Because Cassius wants Brutus to lead all these conspirators of the conspiracy. Conspirator is one who very secretly, hatches a plan to kill a man of greatness, a man of eminence. Cassius is a conspirator because they are conspiring against Julius Caesar. They want to kill Julius Caesar. They do not want Julius Caesar's, Cassius and others do not want Julius Caesar be crowned a king. They wanted Pompey to be the king of Rome and not Julius Caesar. And even Cassius hates Julius Caesar to the core. To the core, C-O-R-E. Understood? Hence, Cassius cleverly flatters Brutus's love for his country and uses his idealism and poisons the mind of Brutus against Julius Caesar. Look how cleverly Cassius speaks to Brutus. Open the text. Come to line number 25. Cassius says, "Will you go see the order of the course?" Brutus, will you go and see how this holy chase is being, run, is being organized? Could you please go there and join? Then Brutus says, "No, not I. I'm not interested." Then Cassius, look at the Cassius says, "I pray you, please do go and join." Then Brutus says, "No, Cassius, I am not interested in sports and games, just as Antony is interested. I'm not gamesome," he says. "I'm not interested in games and sports, as Antony is." Brutus says, "I'm not gamesome." Then he says, "I do lack some part of that quick spirit that is in Antony. So let me not hinder, Cassius, your desires. I will leave you." Now Brutus says he doesn't want to prevent Cassius from joining the holy chase in that, during that festival of Lupercal. That's why Brutus asks Cassius to join. And Brutus says he's not interested because he says he's not gamesome as Antony. He says he's not as active as Antony is in sports and games. Then Cassius, stops at that, and then he takes Brutus into some other line. Cassius says, "Brutus, I do observe you now of late. I've not from your eyes that gentleness and show of love as I was wont to have." Look at this. Look at the cunning nature of Cassius. He tells Brutus, "My dear Brutus, I have been observing you. All these days I've been observing you. You have been treating me as a stranger. I'm your friend. I'm your half brother. I'm your friend that loves you. But still, you have been treating me as a stranger. And I'm hurt. And I want you to tell me why you are treating me like a stranger." Look at the lines here. "Brutus, I do observe you now of late. I've not from your eyes that gentleness and show of love as I was wont to have. In the past, I used to enjoy your gentleness and your love for me. But now, I'm terribly missing those two beautiful things from you. That gentleness and that show of, that expression of your love for me. Could I ask you why you are behaving like a stranger to me? And he says, you are very, very stubborn to a man who loves you. I treat you as my brother. Why don't you love me? Then Brutus says, Cassius, be not deceived. Please, Cassius, don't be misguided. Don't, mistake me for a stranger. If I have veiled my look, I turn the trouble of my countenance merely upon myself. If you feel that I am behaving strangely, it is only because I have turned the trouble of my face, my personal troubles, onto myself. Because I am here not in a position to express what is troubling me. I am not ready to share my problems with anyone. I am keeping my problems to myself. That's why I'm just keeping mum. Perhaps that has triggered you. That has made you think that I'm not friendly with you. I'm not gentle with you. I am not showing any love to you. Then Brutus says, let not therefore my good friends be grieved. So he says, I don't want my good friends, become upset with me for behaving like a stranger with all of you. And then he says, among which number, Cassius, you are the first. I have many friends, my dear Cassius, but you are the first among all my friends. And I don't want you to take me for a stranger. Please believe me, I am gentle to you. I love you. But what could I do? I have my own problems. And I do not want to share all my problems with anyone. Because let me tell you one thing, dear friends. Brutus is a Stoic philosopher, A Stoic philosophy is a Greek philosophy, is an ancient philosophy of the Greeks, wherein a Stoic never expresses his happiness or sorrow openly to anyone. He keeps all his joys and all his sorrows to himself. And such a man is called a Stoic. And Brutus, without any doubt, is a Stoic. Let me tell you. The spelling is S-T-O-I-C. That's why Brutus says, let not therefore my good friends be grieved, among which number, Cassius, you are the one. Then he says, poor Brutus with himself at war. I have my own conflicting feelings. I have many thoughts that are troubling me, which I can't share with my friends. Poor Brutus with himself at war forgets the show of love to others. Because I have my own conflicting thoughts in my heart, I'm not able to show my love and affection to other friends, especially to you, my dear Cassius, he says. Then Cassius says, if you cannot show what is troubling you, then he says, I will be your guide. I will be your reflection. Then before that he says, Brutus, I am so sorry, I have mistaken you. I thought you did not love me. I thought you were not gentle to me. I have mistaken you, I am sorry, he says, because he has to slowly put Brutus into his track. Cassius is very clever. He's very cunning. Look at Cassius. Look at his honey-tongued words. Honey-tongued speeches. Cassius. Then he says, then Brutus, I have much mistook your passion. I'm sorry, I have mistaken your feelings. Then he talks about what is troubling him. Cassius talks about what is troubling him. He says, he has great thoughts buried within himself, he says. Cassius says, this breast of mine hath buried thoughts of great value. He says he has great thoughts, very important thoughts, which he wants to share with Brutus. Cassius says, he has many thoughts buried within himself, and he wants to share all thoughts of great importance with Brutus. Then suddenly Cassius asks him a question. Tell me, good Brutus, can you see your face? Look at this. Can anyone see one's face? I can see my face only in a reflection. When I hold a mirror in front of me, I can see my face. And look how cleverly Cassius asked Brutus this question. Can you see yourself? Then Brutus says, no, Cassius, because the eyes sees not itself. The eye sees not itself, but by reflection. Eyes do not see itself, but only by reflection. Then Cassius immediately talks about Brutus's greatness. Here, he starts flattering Brutus. He says, Brutus, my dear friend, people have lot many things from you. People are expecting lot many things from you. People hold you in high eminence. And I want to tell you what people want from you, he says. Look at this. It is very much lamented, Brutus, that you have no such mirrors as will turn your hidden worthiness into your eye. You have that worthiness hidden within you. You do not know how great you are, Mr. Brutus. This is how he's flattering Brutus. You do not know how great you are. People know how great you are. And people want you to realize your greatness and come to their rescue. And people are very much upset that you are not able to realize your greatness. You are so great. You are such a great lover of freedom. You are such a great lover of your country. You are such an idealist. And people are afraid that you have forgotten your worthiness. Hence, Cassius says, let me be your mirror and let me talk about your greatness. Let me tell you how great you are, and let me tell you what the Romans are expecting of you. The Romans are afraid, they're scared of something. They're scared of somebody, and they want your help. Only your help, but your help. So they are like skylarks, waiting for you to come and be of some help to them. Because he says, Cassius very cleverly says, the Romans are suffering from slavery. They have already started suffering from slavery. They are groaning. They are expressing their pain that they would become slaves under the rule of Caesar if Caesar is crowned a king. Slowly, Cassius brings his point home. Slowly, Cassius is telling Brutus that Caesar is going to become a dictator after Caesar is crowned a king. In a way, indirectly, Cassius is recursing Brutus to prevent that from happening. Okay. Look at this. He says, I've heard where many of the best respect in Rome accept this immortal Caesar. Look at the word. The best respect in Rome want Brutus to realize how great he is, except this immortal Caesar. He very ironically calls Caesar immortal because Caesar is attaining the position of a god in the eyes of Romans. That's why he so ironically uses the word immortal Caesar. Except this immortal Caesar, everybody knows how great you are, Mr. Brutus. And they want you to realize your greatness. And you do not know how great you are, my dear Brutus, he says, Cassius. Look at this. He says, I have heard where many of the best respect in Rome, except immortal Caesar, speaking of Brutus. Everybody is speaking of Brutus except this immortal Caesar. Because they are groaning underneath this age's yoke. They are suffering, The best respect in Rome, the great, highly respected people in Rome, and even the commoners in Rome. The commoners in Rome are being misled by Julius Caesar and his followers. And the best respect in Rome are groaning, are suffering from pain of this age's yoke. This time's slavery. The best respect in Rome are afraid they would have to behave like slaves under Caesar when Caesar becomes a king and a dictator. That's why they want Brutus to realize his greatness. Then Brutus says, into what dangers would you lead me, Cassius, that you would have me seek into myself for that which is not in me? Look at Brutus, he says, into what dangers are you leading me, Cassius? You want me to go in search of the thing that I don't have. That means that Brutus, even here, I think is pretending to be very innocent. Brutus's weakness is that he doesn't want to show that he is a lover of his country. He wants people to flatter him. In a way, this is one of Brutus's greatest weaknesses. Look at this. He very clearly says, Brutus, and here even Brutus is pretending. He says that you would have me seek into myself for that which is not in me. You are making me going in search of a thing that I don't have, he says. But Brutus very well knows that the best respect in Rome and even the people respect him highly for his love for his country. When Brutus pretends that Cassius is cleverer than Brutus, then Cassius says, therefore, good Brutus, prepare to hear. If you don't know about your worthiness, prepare to hear. Since you know you cannot see yourself by reflection, I will be your glass, he says. I will be your mirror, Cassius says. When you cannot see yourself, I will make you see how great you are by acting as your mirror. I, your glass, will modestly discover to yourself how great you are. Then suddenly what happens? Brutus and Cassius hears shouts of people in the holy chase. And suddenly Brutus, without his knowledge, speaks out his mind. Whatever is hidden within himself comes out by the slip of the tongue. Flourish of trumpets and shout of stage. There is a lot of sound being, made with the help of the trumpets and people shouting. And look at Brutus. What means this shouting, he says. What is the meaning of this shout? Suddenly, he speaks out his hidden fears. He says, I do fear the people choose Caesar for the king. Look at Brutus, he says, I do fear people choose Caesar for the king. That fear of people choosing Caesar for the king comes out of Brutus's mouth unknowingly, unaware of himself, by the slip of the tongue. And Cassius catches that word, fear. Then Cassius says, hey, do you fear it? Do you fear it? Are you afraid of Caesar becoming the king? is Cassius's question. That means that even Cassius comes to know that even Brutus is not interested in Caesar becoming the king of Rome. Because Brutus is an idealist, I've told you. Brutus gives more importance to democratic values. And he's against one man's rule. Then Brutus says, I would not, Cassius. I am not afraid of Caesar because I love Caesar, he says. Suddenly he pretends. Suddenly he shows off his love for his friend. He says, I would not, Cassius, yet I love him well. Look at this. I am not afraid. I don't fear Cassius. I don't fear Caesar. I fear Caesar becoming the king, not Caesar the general. Because I love Caesar, who is just a general. Mind you, my dear friend, I love the name of honor more than I fear that. Brutus says he loves the name of honor more than he fears death. That means that he gives more importance to honor, patriotism, love for his country than the fear of his personal death. When he says that, then Cassius says, I know that you have that good quality in you. Then he says, well, let me tell you one thing. The subject of my story is honor, he says. Honor is the subject of my story. Even Cassius very cleverly, sounds that word, takes out that word subject. Honor. And he says, honor is also the subject of my story. And now he talks about how the people's honor is in danger when Caesar becomes the king and the dictator. And I will talk about how Cassius talks about this honor in my next video. Till then, follow this video and, closely read the text, the lines. Okay, thank you. God bless you all.